had Uncharted, and the Wii had the Wii Sports Tennis game that broke all of our TVs. But unlike the previous generations, the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X technically have way more games than any other console in history. Every week a new indie game releases, there's backwards compatibility for almost any game that you can think of, and if God forbid those older games didn't play well, then there's a pretty good chance it's been completely remade. So then why does this generation feel like it has nothing? How does that make any sense? The answer starts getting more clear when we look at every hit this generation's had so far. There's a problem. You see it? Hold on. Let me remove every game that was made primarily for the previous generation. Now let's remove every game that's considered a better playing experience on the PC. And last but not least, let's remove every remake or remaster of an existing game. The list is dramatically smaller, isn't it? I mean, if these games tell us anything, it's that there's something in the water with Insomniac and we gotta protect them at all costs. They love me. But this generation's games are actually a bigger problem than you think happened to the previous generation, specifically the Xbox 360, PS3, and Wii generation. For context, the 7th generation of consoles objectively had worse development tools, worse hardware to build games on, less people with skills to build them, and less documentation to learn from. I mean, these consoles released before social media was big, and here's the games that they released during the same time as the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. It's pretty wild, right? See, back then, every game was made solely for that generation of consoles without remakes, and you can forget about a PC port back then. I mean, that just wasn't the thing. Because during that time, Steam was just getting started. Blizzard makes like one game every decade, and Microsoft is pushing the insanely buggy games for Windows Live. Look, these games technically aren't telling you the full story. While most of these games are critically acclaimed, it's what they did for the industry. The 7th generation is so special. For example, Gears of War revolutionized third-person shooters, cooperative story, and around color that never made viewers for a lot longer than they should. Wii Sports revolutionized motion controls made accessible for a brand new casual audience. Technically, because of the Wii, anyone could play games and rest in peace to all the TVs. And back then, Call of Duty actually revolutionized FPS control, multiplayer progression, and 60 frames per second as a staple of multiplayer. But what's more insane is that the publishers that absolutely dominated the 7th generation have completely bombed in this generation. Next generation gaming! Warner Brothers was on top of the world with Batman and Shadow of Mordor. Then they release Suicide Squad, a game that nobody. Nope. Ubisoft dominates with Assassin's Creed, but then launches their quadruple A game Skull and Bones to crickets. Like, that game came out 2 months ago and no one's talking about it. It's already probably half off. Activision revolutionized multiplayer gaming with Call of Duty, a grounded military game, but now this is Call of Duty. Call of Duty. Also, Microsoft, you know, the single biggest video game publisher in the world right now. They launched Redfall, Starfield, completely empty, finance studio, completely fired, laid off 4 more employees during the making of this video, and released 3 buggy, incomplete Halo games in a row. And they all hurt. It's significant. So here's the $1 million question, if not $1 billion. What the heck is happening with video games? We see the simple answer that gains a lot of social credit these days is making games is hard.
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 Using my personal experience in the soccer world field of doing it for 10 years, I can't argue that the process is difficult. But I can argue that these companies have no idea like games through that lens So we can start to see why we're getting so many remakes of games that were so successful. So many wide service Destiny or Fortnite clones, and why so many games are made on the previous generation with higher install base first instead of the new consoles we spent $600 of our hard-earned media money on. For cheap remakes, start building. Just throw them. It might be because I love video games or because I'm Canadian and those genetically predisposed to them. That's wrong. Think right? So video games, there's some weak future. Teach these kids. No one thought the Xbox One was going to make it 2 years ago. Just take it out back to the console. Instead, we're all on the same page. No one's going to be there and make it feel like see, it's time to make games that people actually talk about live service match. Assassin's Creed, Half-Life 2, and actually even Halo. Yeah, just think you'll get it. It actually surprised me. I mean, even there's two. Yeah, it worked for Counter-Strike. They're all the game companies. Should make more than it's Suicide Squad. Next generation games is just the first business cases. That was like every single PlayStation merged into one super PlayStation, and I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. Extremely expensive. Not data were downloaded larger and larger. It was just like to yourself. Frustrating 30 minutes of this game already. Just, play one of the digital games already. I'll just play the game today and take the game to the network speed so I can use it anytime. And also you decide to play the most aggressive game version of Fantasy Legion games. Your phone doesn't need a 200 gig update until you almost assuredly give up and decide to watch someone else play games on YouTube or Twitch instead. And if that's your case, hello and welcome to the channel. Okay? Now, at first glance, it seems like the console experience is objectively worse than those that came before. If you're skeptical like I was, then don't worry. And on the Super Nintendo, I'll try to play Elden which also gonna play Ratchet and Clank. Maybe on PlayStation 5, I'll try Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. So this game's really interesting. So, yeah. I have to get the faster, but you see, in the ninth generation, the games were worse, the play experience is worse, and in the Xbox Series X case, it barely tries to do anything to trigger you. Nostalgia, Windows launch in the Xbox Series X It's 2007. For some reason, we talk like this. Bro. British accent. That's just what 2007 was like. So, you want to play Halo 3 with your friends? Halo 360 has a red ring. What are you to do? First, you need a microphone to communicate. Thankfully, Microsoft graciously it's a pretty decent quality on the time of your Xbox 360. That means that anyone can has a PC. Well, it is 2007. It's probably the best time to do it. Fortunately, one of the efficiency. That's this, like a lot of systems. And the game, like I mentioned, was one of the ones that every single person okay, so it's 2024. The PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X have a few small differences. Despite being more expensive, the consoles no longer come with microphones. Each one defined a specific part of my life, and I'm pretty sure it did for you guys too. This truly is the ninth generation console, just one gaming experiences.
والله الحين اللي ربط.
Man, now, yeah. You're against it, asshole. Hey, you're pretty rude. He's like, and I just
Thank you for supporting this channel. As someone who grew up in the early 2000s and witnessed in real time the launch of things like YouTube and the social media boom, died under the stained glass lamps, saw traded Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon cards on the playground, and consumed a life-threatening amount of strangely diet inescapable feeling. And talk about your childhood nostalgia, or the realization of time or maybe even a disdain for the systems at play. Finally aging up to the better and see the bigger picture. I just don't think that's the case. It seems like from childhood, the world was built with system. And at some point, that world just stopped. And sitting down trying to pinpoint exactly where this shit occurred seems impossible. I guess one of the best places to start is college. I remember being early in the Harry Potter franchise as a child. Books. If you had a wizard on it, I wanted it. There were several franchises that ate up all of our minds at the time. And while Harry Potter was probably the first franchise I really remember loving as a child, a close second had to be Spider-Man.
That's a cute outfit. Did your husband give it to you?
And with the Raimi films also coming out around that time, I was primed to grow into a lifelong comic book nerd. Luckily for me, my stepdad was already a full-blown geek, and it just so happened that my school was trying a new schedule where we only had class for half a day on Wednesdays, the day my stepdad also had off. So with the remainder of our day left, we'd just hang out. He'd show me old movie franchises that he loved, like Indiana Jones and Ghostbusters, Star Wars, Rambo, and I would latch on to these series, quickly becoming a fan. When new movies came out, we would frequently go watch them, like Batman Begins or Prisoner of Azkaban. In hindsight, it felt a lot like a generational crossover. He'd grown up on these franchises and passed them along to me. Now we're getting our own to share, Harry Potter and these new superhero movies. So imagine our elation when in May 2008, we would see the release of a brand new Indiana Jones movie and an Iron Man. And so we went and saw both of these movies in theaters. And for both of these movies, we had a vastly different experience. Iron Man was amazing. Both loved it. It felt gritty, like Batman Begins, but still had this charm to it, like the Raimi that felt true for Tony Stark and Marvel. Getting up as I normally do once the credits roll, my stepdad tells me to sit back down. He heard from a coworker there's a special credits scene, so sit down. Never having sat through the entire credit sequence in the theater, I realized how long they actually were. So I figured whatever was at the end of this, I better be good. And it actually was. The ending scene with Nick Fury inviting Iron Man to the Avengers opened up this whole can of worms and excitement for what other great stories could be told. It was going to be a franchise with more heroes on the way. I was really excited to see how they'd expand on this mega franchise. Would we get Galactus in the future? Hey, what if those X-Men movies that have been coming out and crossing over? I was simply overjoyed how fresh and new this all seemed to be. I was once again ready to move on. Now, on the other side of the spectrum was Indiana Jones, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. There was a bit of a different experience between me and my stepdad. I remember him walking out just as disappointed as me, seeing one of your favorite series brought back to life and smashed in front of you. Little did I know that that would be a constant feeling in the future. The whole movie felt off. It seemed like it was brought back solely for the point of being able to say, hey, we brought it back. Wasn't that cool? Well, entirely missing the point of what made the franchise so long in the first place. I don't know, something just felt off. I remember an incredibly heavy toy rollout with this movie was running. As I walked the toy aisle between the Logo Crazy Bones, the Air Hog Abbott Ellie, that new Batmobile, I saw that it didn't feel. I felt like I was watching something I loved with its corpse dug up and paraded around, all to make a quick buck. This wasn't uncommon and still isn't today. Literally everything that marketed towards kids will have cheap plastic garbage. I mean, most of the 80s cartoons were built solely off of the principle of selling toys, but it was the first time that I had it. Fast forward to the present day, and we have a fit Indiana Jones movie that did the same song. That little Marvel thing that I was so excited for is now up to 32 films, with another 8 shows that you just have to catch up on. That should have been the green light, and it was. For a while, before everything became so monotone. Babe, wake up. It's time for your yearly Marvel rollout. Babe, wake up. It's time to bring another franchise back from the dead. Babe, wake up. It's time for you to add a feature in the film to sell toys. Babe, wake up. It's time to sit through the post credits. There's been a growing sentiment that Hollywood is running out of ideas. And from a surface level, it is very hard to find. Anytime something is wildly popular, it will get mass-produced to extinct, or some old IP will get dug up, sold for, hey, remember this thing, points? It used to be cheap, but now it seems all the Hollywood blockbusters are being mass-produced to appeal. Why this variety? Making everything feel ultimately stale. Can't stray too far into the source material or you may alienate casual viewers. Can't have a self-contained story. Everything has to be this huge spectacle. Don't even get me started on the modification of all this. Do you want to talk about cheap plastic garbage geared towards kids? We've got that for adults now. In every imaginable thing they can possibly want. Pick your fucking brand because there's tons of them. Most of them owned by the same company. Crock pots, aprons, cat collars, chopsticks, you name it, they'll slap your favorite IP on it. It's so draining going into a store like Box Lunch anymore. Truly a monument to the whole trend of this is a forever IP. Remember this thing? Yeah, we're gonna milk it to death with the most mundane merch imaginable. Which brings me into my second point. Everything is so boring to look at. There's a reason why people have been so drawn to these Y2K aesthetics, like Fruitiger and its many spin-offs. They're memorable, visually appealing, and stuck out in a sea of other designs. Even exploring old Angel Fire pages has a certain air of excitement to it that you will never find on a modern webpage today. There's no more sticking out in a sea of designs, there's just the sea. For example, I was talking to a friend about old Lunchables, specifically the dessert pizza ones. I was mentioning how I love the dessert pizzas, but I don't think they make them anymore because I can never find them. I did a little Google search and saw they do in fact still make them, but this packaging is horrendous compared to the 2000s packaging. Like, I'm not crazy, right? Not even just from a personal perspective, but this is objectively a worse design for a product geared towards children. Like, this one looks like something I would see on my grandma's Metamucil. Another example, Fierce Cola competitors, Pepsi and Coke. This is their 2000s design. Pepsi has this rich blue. The logo is off-centered, and the name is going vertically. The can also features this almost ice cube design to it. Coke, on the other hand, is sporting this shiny red can, with the label also vertical, but it has these caramel lines running across the bottom, with this floaty, almost bubbly wave pattern to it. Both are incredibly simple in design, but are both uniquely their own style. I don't even have to mention the cherry lineup that these guys had, because these are some of the most memorable soft drink designs of all time. Fast forward to today, however, and Do you want the red can, or would you like the blue can? That is basically the only difference you can make between the two. There's almost no attempt to stand out in a crowd, aside from this color scheme and logo. I feel like this is why my eye is so heavily drawn to things like Mountain Dew. That, and I'm a fucking gamer. I mean, at least there's something going on. At least Mountain Dew treats me like I can comprehend more than just some logo and a color scheme. It's also a big part of why I think things like Liquid Death get so popular. In a sea of bland corporate BS on shelves, if you can manage to get that shelving space with them and look different, people are going to be intrigued. Bonus points if you actually make a good product. I could not fathom anyone preferring these minimalist designs on our products. So who are they for? Am I just looking way too deeply into something as mundane as the packaging our food comes in? Something most people probably don't even bat an eye at? Maybe I just need to go outside, get off the internet for a little while, and fuck me. This homogenized look has even bled into architecture. Remember the iconic red roof McDonald's used to have? The Adobe styling of Taco Bell, that pizzeria feeling of Pizza Hut, or the sunroof in Wendy's? Gone are those days. Now they are all sleek, boxy monoliths to fast food, painted gray, white, black, or whatever the most drab color they could find. The insides do not get much better either. My McDonald's before its remodel used to have a genuinely cozy vibe for a McDonald's. Now it is absolutely sterile, just like how all fast food restaurants now feel. I'm not asking for rainforest cafe levels of ambiance, but the environment that's been crafted here is just depressing. And when your food is already depressing enough, choosing to eat in an environment like this is horrible. It's like it's been crafted to be the most cold, uncomfortable place to eat a meal. Functional? Absolutely. You can sit down and you can eat a meal here, but you don't want to be in here. It feels like the company is actively trying to dissuade you from being in their establishment. It feels like a new take on hostile architecture where it is absolutely hideous to look at, while still serving its function at the most basic level of, say, a bench or a chair. But you won't be comfortable because it is designed to be your way. And the thing is, the Chipotle and Panda Express were using this exact design prior to the renaissance of this drab interior. But I never felt particularly cold in either of these restaurants. So why is it? Well, probably because the stores were designed like that from the start. Scott Shipley, designer of Chipotle stores, had this to say about their processes. Our food is simple ingredients. It's what we do with them that counts. The idea of the architecture was, let's take these simple, rudimentary materials, but what we do with them will say something. A bit of luck after that. When entering a restaurant that looks like this, at a time when other restaurants look like this, or this, or this, it doesn't feel so sterile now, does it? It's unique and exciting, kind of like a new superhero movie. But after the 33rd time that you've seen a restaurant with this design, completely stripped from its source material, it starts to feel a little manufactured for you to like, without understanding why it works in the first place. I've talked ad nauseum on this channel about internet nostalgia, but the web's changed, and that growth has directly affected the human lives. And a lot of us have seen that effect happen in real time. Times before TikTok and Twitter bots, before the word meme was widespread, a simpler, more Wild West reality. No one really knew where this thing was going, but it was exciting, and once you experienced it, you were pulled in. You can't place the blame on what the internet on one person or one company, but I can confidently say giving this guy the reins for so long was not the right move. Let's go over an extended and very through histories. In 1980, people were using like this, doing, I don't know, boring office work, nerdy stuff, trying to play computers very. Point is, not a lot of people using it. You had businessmen, working class citizens, and even nerds. Computers were expensive, hard to navigate, and a lot of people weren't sure applications. Around the turn of the decade, computers started to get a lot faster and a lot cheaper, all due to developments in the manufacturing of microchips. Not only that, all this new power allowed this to this. Ease of access had been figured out, and now you're seeing families not only get home computers, but also get dial-up internet. And by 1995, that was the greatest piece of technology ever released. Microsoft bought it. And know that it's a joke. I died for this dog, and I don't care what you think. Also, Windows 1995 was rather notable to us phones, seriously revamping the user interface, adding key features like the start button and the taskbar. This marks the point where these manufacturers and users what they wanted to show the sentiment that would follow in the coming years. In 1995, only 0.4% of the world's population was on the internet. And in the time between the turn of the millennium, you'd see things like AuctionNet, a totally online open marketplace where people could place bids in real time. A small, probably irrelevant program called Future Splash Animator was released. Oh shit, it just got bought out by Macromedia, hitmaker of Shockwave, and they're calling it Macromedia Flash. I'm sure a name change like that. GeoCities and AngelFire, services that they create. The website's a lot easier. Big at 60 which is why they're regarded as social implementing things like Craigslist, direct messaging, and by 1988, the little and in 1999, AuctionNet and trade for as eBay and had facilitated around $7.2 million worth of sales. Remember that 0.4% in 1995? Well, by January of 2000, that number had jumped to a whopping 4% of the world's population surfing, with 52% of Americans having access to the internet. This whole Macromedia Flash thing is getting pretty popular. In fact, it is the most popular plugin on the internet. Oh look, a whole thriving site that's been going in the background dedicated. It's really one of the most active user bases on the internet. It's safe to say about 2,000 internet thing. No, literally, without a bubble just happened. Somebody go check my Newground. Yeah, all that money is in the past few years does go down to around $5 trillion. It's over. Hopefully this doesn't go back. All avenues of time on the internet. That's what I like to describe I've been 2002 look at the rise of the first successful Zoom companies, implementing some customization and dating app features that its competitor would soon shortly rip off. MySpace took a lot of Friendster's designs and through some guerrilla marketing ended up dethroning Friendster with customizable profiles, ranking your top 8 friends, autoplaying music tracks on your page, and to its detriment, many more features. What GeoCities and AngelFire did by giving users a page of their own, MySpace perfected this time with the added layer of networkability. 2004 sees the launch of a familiar face coming up for that throne, Facebook, but they're not quite significant yet. The next year, 2005, seems to be a pretty pivotal year. We see Adobe acquiring Macromedia for our final name change of that big technology, Adobe Flash. The same year, we get YouTube, a website I'm sure you know because you're on it. The Xbox 360, which I'd argue is the first console to fully utilize and get its players on board with the idea of online gaming. I'd say largely due to to the fact that 2005 also marks the turn in how Americans access the internet. The first year, broadband internet use over 29. Now, more of us have access to never needing to buy a videos are the biggest games on the accessible. No longer the world wants to all the searches next 5 years of this continues to grow this platform. Everything from Newgrounds sees some of its greatest characters in 2005, 2007, Twitter is launched as the ultimate social media site to stream its whatever. Make up Reddit is taking inspiration from other websites. Reddit's years screamed a lot of 4chan videos. Modern day various. And speaking of 4chan, these were some of its earliest years from uploading a scan of 2008 that would internet. 4chan was only seen as sort of this breeding ground for internet culture, older than the thread from the first space most users are fine with seeing it here. But MySpace, it might have been their time line. MySpace was having respect and also broken features and how this with security threats and other roles in the site can be like ads became intrusive and a bid to monetize the site. Users started to hop over to the sleek, uniformly designed, feature-rich Facebook. And by 2008, Facebook had dethroned MySpace as the #1 social media. Facebook seems like this new, exciting thing, and everyone is just moving over in hordes with fun features like posting your friends, and of course, the wall. Bringing all of your friends' posts right there to you. It's not digestible form. Everything is very accessible. But maybe, I don't know. There does seem to be a lack of personality and maybe I'm surely the style of oversimplified design will take over the internet. There's no way that Facebook would work the most influential tech company in that. Simply up to major corporations following in its footsteps. No customization. Hell, we'd be lucky if we don't get banned for saying a naughty word on their site. They wouldn't do that to us. They wouldn't do that to kids whose content on their site, right? That last section made sense. But I really wanted to understand that this always users rigid so often customization tabs is everything targeted usually that you so customizing the background now has been boiled down to profile pictures. They have Facebook being replacement for MySpace, which was all one of the most profile pictures Bam. Twitter. Mobile business. Bam. Reddit. Mobile business. Bam. And I mean, look at Reddit. They just have more Twitter. And it doesn't have a book, but they still just give off that Funko Pop feeling. Speaking of feeling, all of these sites functionally act the same. No more crawling the web. Instead, you just scroll from one app until it's boring, and then scroll through another. Every website is essentially the same song and dance of going down your time. Oh, well, that's just the most optimal way to scroll. Sure, whatever. It definitely doesn't have anything to do with Facebook forcing ads into your timeline in 2012. An immensely controversial move at the time, which likely in turn made them illegal. Let's run a little experiment here. Open your phone, choose your favorite social media site, and scroll until you've gotten fed. I'm willing to guess you didn't get 8 posts deep before you saw either promoted or a sponsored post. This commodification of the internet is very reminiscent of every other aspect of news. Okay, well, they've got to make money somehow. They have to pay for one of the ad-free services that we have provided. Really hate the ads. And at the end of the day, the content. So let's talk about the start with what's a powerhouse trailer. Just create the stars out of those skits. On their own, giving the people of the trainers their chances like without restraints or repellent. The authenticity in creative was created as world is a anything but this thing. The lifeblood of the site is changed from working kids in their bedrooms working facets day in, day out to bring together the most universally appealing. This takes on its own identity, creating carbon clones of itself, copying and pasting across other social medias. Have you ever felt like YouTube has gotten stale after all? Like Gen X woman who watches Mr. Beast instead of him the site Facebook. Tell me in what world do you rocking YouTubers forward hate PewDiePie? And there's agreement there that the whole Let's Play era of content was also just and pasted. Whatever game was over that played every single game. The only difference was it's that ass feel that we see today. It feels like everything that gets attention is fit to get attention from every other platform. Regardless of what application, the delivery of all this content is also given to us some software is gathered at one time, data, request, and spitting out what things. Riverboats that specifically whatever you're searching. Even if you go to the world, but if you go things, internet like you it's a great
Get extra fast right, son. This is new stuff.
if all these things something to either win our attention or win our money, then the introduction of literal artificial life and technology might be one. You ever just scroll through TikTok and get shown something like this 15 times?
The Simpsons cartoon predicted the future correctly. Donald Trump's presidency.
Not only is it the milk toast broad appeal content we talked about in the previous section, but now it's not even human. There's not somebody at least trying to be an entertaining host. It's just some robot trying to mimic them. Every time I see something like this, I get this sinking feeling that we are surely coming to a close of this whole internet thing being ours. There's posts like this throughout
But
all of the
allow me,
web,
you are
with
unable
literal
prevented the
bot farms
thorn.
of these things
Perhaps the
just
only way to
running day
become
in
my
and day
purpose,
out.
so I'd
The
like
most
to the fray
horrifying
then
example
and
being
guide.
those that run Facebook producing these AI-generated photos of
Shall I
Jesus,
let my
getting
share
increasingly
them
more
with me?
bizarre and incomprehensible,
Your
but doing
thoughts,
literal numbers.
your
Not only because
ambitions,
boomers are kind of
the
stupid and eat this
principles
shit
you
up,
would follow.
but now there's these AI accounts that are supposed to be posing as users eating up this content. The dead internet theory has become all but a theory, really, and just kind of looks like our future. The worst part of all this, AI isn't some tool locked behind a corporate level payroll. Facebook isn't one of these bots out here to make the site feel more lively and have more content. AI technology is practically free for any of us to use, and that seems to be who's propagating it the most online for some reason or another. It's just us. We're still in a fairly primordial stage of all of this, I'd say. These bots can be recognized, the songs can be heard, the photos can be dissected, all pointing to this thing we're experiencing being artificial. But what happens when that isn't the case anymore? We've opened Pandora's box, and there's no going back from this technology. What happens when we can't tell who in the Twitter thread is a bot? We can't tell if the song we're listening to is a genuine artist who spent years of their life honing their craft and is instead someone who spent a couple of weeks with an AI model to fabricate the song. Not only are we being guided through the content we consume by an AI, but we're about to start getting shown undistinguishable content produced by an AI. Artificial intelligence makes everything seem less real because it controls how we interact and it does creative tasks automatically. As AI starts to control more of what we see online, it makes us wonder what's fake. It makes the world around us feel even less real. If you needed a better example, that quote was literally experiencing this feeling that the world around us is growing more artificial. Like myself, the integration of artificial intelligence is only going to make this worse. The internet seems to be long removed from the days of being something to connect us all. And with the introduction of bots that we won't be able to tell apart from real, genuine people, losing that feeling of individuality and almost everything we consume online being fed to us directly by some computer deciding this is what we do, rather than what we or what we're feeling. So grim outlook for sure. I mean, speaking back to fast food, certain stores have begun integrating AI ordering. I have a McDonald's a few miles away from me that is strictly automated. Very little human interaction. The employees are basically just in the back making the food, completely void from the customers. When you start removing humans from the human experience, especially in things that can only exist because of humans, everything you interact with just seems manufactured. I didn't set out for this video to have such a humor vibe to it, and I really hope it didn't come off that way. I was really just trying to get an idea of why I felt the world had changed. And if the world around you seems to be growing more artificial and changing, perhaps the best thing you can do is get into the world of those tools. That, and you can always plant some strawberries along the road.
I think this has been a big problem for movies. I think Deadpool is a great thing that's ironic and it breaks the fourth wall and it's funny. I think the problem though is that a lot of things try to be like Deadpool, but most actors don't have the charisma of Ryan Reynolds or Hugh Jackman, so it just doesn't really work.
This is a scene from Joss Whedon's The Avengers.
Yeah.
You've probably seen it. In fact, you've probably laughed at it.
I did.
I know I did back in 2012, along with every single other person in the entire cinema. And realistically, how could we? It was such a surprise, such a hilarious subversion of the classic villain monologue. I mean, think about it. It's literally the filmmaker
That was well. I gotta wait now.
is picking up the serious tropes we've become accustomed to over the past 100 years and saying to the audience,
Good the CGI used to be. How good this shit was.
the audience, hey, you and I have both seen this scene thousands of times before, right? We both know what you've come to expect from the start. So, how about we just throw this formula around like a rag doll and try something new? And in the moment, it seems like a really exciting proposition. I mean, come on, an era where stories are sentient, an era where movies know they are movies and which can therefore create this new age relationship between storyteller and audience, one which is interactive and two-sided, which knows our expectations and therefore knows how to play with and subvert. What could possibly go wrong?
I think that the example with Loki is probably one of the worst examples, in my opinion, because Loki is a trickster, and in a lot of ways he adds a lot of brevity to the story, and I think it does make sense. And also, it's a superhero movie. But the other ones I agree with.
Well, it turns out a few things. Lots of things, actually. Let me start by revisiting a story I briefly told in my recent
I've seen this
on
one.
Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Yeah,
Why they
it's
remain
cool.
the untouchable. For some reason, I missed out on these movies throughout my childhood. I don't know. It just never occurred to me that I should watch them. So by the time I did eventually sit down to view the trilogy, I think I was 17, and by then was very much accustomed to the cynical, self-aware, ironic style of storytelling which had grown.
By the way, this movie was an S-tier movie. 21 Jump Street. Fucking insanely good. Such a great movie. Actually amazing. I never knew Channing Tatum was outstanding.
Now, to this day, I'm pretty ashamed by what I'm about to tell you, but Fellowship of the Ring begins. We hear Kate Blanchett's narration, and I'm thinking, okay, this is pretty cool. It's a bit overly serious, but whatever. And we get to the bit with Sauron, and we see this villain who kind of looks like he's from Power Rangers, and Galadriel's talking about a place called Mount Doom. So obviously, I brace myself for the joke, the moment where this ridiculous tension is broken.
It's weird how, like, obviously this guy's a bit younger, right? So, like, he grew up with movies like this, whereas, like, for me, like, Lord of the Rings was the norm. You know, like, then there was Gladiator, and, like, you know, we grew up watching Spartacus, and, you know, the Ten Commandments, and, Lawrence of Arabia, you know, like, and we also, by the way, we had movies like 300, well, 300 was 2006 or 7, I think, right? That was a bit later, like 13th Warrior, Braveheart. Like, we had movies like, for example, like, a really great example of an older movie that has, like, that same type of storytelling is Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones definitely had the same type of, like, self-awareness that, like, people can sometimes criticize new movies for. But, again, do you know what the new movies don't have? They don't have the charisma of Harrison Ford. Troy. Yeah, bro, Troy. Exactly. Like, there's no joke. Your fucking Achilles just kills, was it Hector of Troy, in front of fucking everybody, drags his corpse around, and he says, fuck y'all, I'll be back and kill everybody else later. That was it, right? It wasn't like he tripped on the way out, and it's like, haha, funny. No, bro, like, he just killed him, and that was it. Yeah, the Mummy was like that too. Yeah, they had a lot of like the comedy and shit like that too.
And it just doesn't come. So I think, fine, that was the prologue, whatever. You can't really make jokes in the prologue. Then we get the whole Shire sequence.
But it's weird to see like a younger person watching these movies that's not familiar with the way the storytelling used to be. It's really interesting to see this perspective. I haven't heard of it.
Little guys running around the place, smoking weed,
I love
making
this, by
these
the way.
weird faces. It all feels rather camp, rather silly, especially
so
once the wizard and the pointy hat arrives. And
Absolutely.
so once again, I brace myself to the self-referential joke, for the film to acknowledge how bizarre this all is. And once again, no such joke occurs. And this basically...
I think that there's a couple of points of levity here. It's the guy, you know, hobbits aren't particularly smart or, you know, like the best inventors or anything. And it's like a dumb guy picking his ear and then like the older guy who's laughing when Gandalf sets off the fireworks, and the kids are happy, and then the wife comes out and she's mad, and then he's like, "This too, yeah, it's so bad." You know, like, so there actually was brevity in Lord of the Rings. It's just that it wasn't done in a way that was cringe. Most of the brevity that's done now in Hollywood movies is written by people whose worldview is, what would the world be like if everything that my parents told me was actually wrong? It feels like almost bratty in a way.
And no such joke occurred. And this basically happens for the entire trilogy. Like, you think I would have gotten used to the tone after a few scenes, but no. My brain had been so molded over time by so much postmodern wing.
Nobody paused.
Back already, no matter.
And live acts that Gimli's actually fucking breaks. Gimli absolutely had a lot of comic relief moments. And then fucking Merry and Pippin. Absolutely comic relief. Yeah, there were a lot of that. The problem isn't that there's comic relief, it's there's the authenticity and purity of the relief that doesn't feel like it's fake. Second breakfast? Yeah, exactly. And then Aragorn throws him the... Yeah, there you go. There's so many examples of it. It's just done in a way that's sincere and authentic. Which is, again, to be fair, what the video is about. It's about sincerity and not jokes. But I feel like, again, a lot of times these two things get conflated. Sorry, I'm pausing a lot. Lord of the Rings is my favorite movie series. I have to fucking... Okay.
Nudge story. That it could just not recognize sincerity. Now, let's actually stop for a second. Think about how crazy that is. Because sincerity is not some outlandish storytelling device, only used by those daring few writers and directors. No, sincerity, since the dawn of time, has been the very essence of storytelling itself. Like, imagine having this conversation with someone even 50 years ago. They probably wouldn't even understand the amount of life
Like, and still, nobody can even come close to this. I actually think it's the way they record film nowadays. I'm actually a believer that I think, like, the is a better cinematic quality than what they do nowadays.
Slap what you were talking about. For millennia, stories were told to convey truths, to share human experiences, to evoke genuine emotion, from ancient myths and legends to classic literature, to television and cinema. Sincerity has been the core element that binds the audience to the narrative. It's the fundamental ingredient that allows us to resonate so deeply with the story. Sincerity is what makes characters relatable, struggles compelling, and triumphs uplifting. Now look, I'm not saying that every story has to be this serious thing which dramatically changes our life. There is absolutely a place for irony. The stories that...
Yeah, this was... Dude, Hot Fuzz was absolutely an ironic, really funny movie. I love this movie.
Take themselves too seriously. The movies which know they are movies have fun with that premise. In fact, this kind of storytelling can be incredibly refreshing and entertaining when done right. However, when this becomes the default, when every film in the cinema feels the need to follow trend by shying away from earnest emotions or genuine stakes, a lot of the problems which filmed with a more sincere approach.
Yeah, bro, like this scene, this shit was so cute. Like, I remember watching this in a movie theater, and I was like, what the fuck? Bro, like, because, like, you gotta remember, because like, I was a little kid, right? And so, like, I'm like, oh man, the wizard died. That's so sad. That's awful, right? And then you find out he comes back. This dude leveled up. He fought the demon. He fucking killed it. Resurrected by God. And now he's back. Holy shit.
First of all, that amazing thrill of having your expectations subverted, that rush of excitement you get when a movie is meta, self-aware, ironic, well, it has extremely diminishing returns. Like I said earlier, everyone in the movie did their laugh back in 2012 when Hulk picked up Loki and
Great. Yeah, that was great.
But I imagine if you watched that scene today, It just wouldn't be that fun. But why?
Well, yeah, because we already saw it. Well, the reason, I don't know. Actually, I don't think really the reason for that is anything other than the fact that we already have seen it, and the joke was the abruptness of it. And so because we're already knowing that it's going to happen, it's not fun. You know, like that's the reason why.
Well, first of all, the joke has been done a million times since, in both every Marvel movie and basically everywhere else. But on top of this, every single one of these self-referential jokes is essentially the same, just with slightly different notes and beats.
I gotta do it. Even though I agree with this movie, this video. We always had this.
Like, sure, you can subvert expectations, break the fourth, play on pre-established tropes in as many
You want to hear a really good example of one when it was good? And this, by the way, was the best episode of this entire season. This episode went so fucking hard, and one of the reasons why is because of the fact that it was 100% sincere. This was so fucking good. Like, I know everybody makes fun of Game of Thrones for being bad, but even in the later seasons, they had, like, huge W's. It was really only season 8 that I think really sucked. There we go. And, like, you see this guy, he looks like a fucking badass, right? Fucking skeleton. Trying to reason it out.
I'm not giving on the right. He's not my prisoner. No. What is you're out of fucking Christian.
Uh-oh.
I'm gonna throw it now.
Uh-oh. And he's still trying to be reasonable.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, he's trying to talk to them.
Right. You get down on your knees like this.
And it's not like it's one hit either. That's it. That's it. And it was, that was fucking badass. And so, like, there are instances where you have that sincerity, and, like, you have the same thing that's kind of like Loki getting thrown around. But it's just that some of the movies just don't have, I don't think they have, like, the writing ability for it. I think the difference is not the style of storytelling, it's in the quality of it. You're right. Yeah, it's the quality. Because the guy that plays Torment is fucking amazing.
But let's face it, the joke is pretty much, hey, you're watching a film, you know. Like, that's it. That's the whole joke, done over and over and over. And it's probably a formula, other than it's trying to say exposure. It did not be exact, is that it makes what is supposed to be unpredictable, versus predictable. In my opinion, the best example of this is all magic. Look which I personally find harder. Now look at
I love this movie. I think it's one of my favorite Marvel movies. I do. I think it's such a great movie.
quite every single line or joke or Ragnarok and a lot of them are And they're so frequent that it doesn't take long to predict when they're coming. Again, they're essentially stage killers. Like the movie starts with yet another villain monster. The Atlas goes for slowly slips away from the twist, and it makes one of its tail slightly.
I think that we have to keep in mind that with Thor Ragnarok in particular, this is a superhero movie, and there are two average age groups that this is being targeted towards. 38-year-old men and their 12-year-old sons. It's a comic book movie. It is a comedic comic book movie that is not supposed to be for kids.
And then the film gets back to the villain one positive thing, alright, well, let's do it. And then they just do the exact same joke again, like 10 seconds later, and you just think, what's even the point? You're just gonna pull the rug out from under me every single time. I'm gonna very quickly pick up on what you're doing and learn when to jump on the said rug. That metaphor makes sense.
Like, I did see what his point is, and I think actually, well, like, and you can compare that with, like, the movie after that, Love and Thunder, right? That movie should have been way better. It really should have been, but I just don't think it was written well. Like, I just, yeah, I loved it, the one sucked. Yeah, but, like, it shouldn't have sucked. It didn't deserve to suck. It deserved to be very good.
The thing that made this story somewhat work in the beginning is that it was surprising and unpredictable. I'm afraid to say that that ship sailed wrong, leaving us with, well, what exactly? To be honest with you, I'm not really sure. Whatever it is, it feels quite nasty, you know, like the trick is being played on us, like we're being gaslit by someone who doesn't really respect the audience or the material they're responsible for.
So true.
It's kind of surreal to say out loud, but that's where we now find us. Like, there's this one film which I'm sure no one's ever heard of before, called The Last Jedi. I think it's the 8th episode of this epic space opera saga thing, and there's this one joke in it where we see this huge ship landing, and the cinematography and the music seem to be leading us to some
It's an
big
iron.
reveal. And then it turns out to be an iron. Like, it's an iron. Ironing some clothes. Now look, I can actually see how someone could find this moment kind of witty, and I'm not going to argue against it. However, I would argue that the brief laugh this moment may perhaps offer is nowhere near worth what it takes away. Because this joke basically feels like the creators of The Last Jedi, whoever they may be, making fun of us and punishing us for taking any of this seriously. It almost feels...
I think that kind of makes sense, but, like, you have a character like Chewbacca, right? Who, like, clearly Chewbacca is the comic relief for the old movies, you know? Like, he was, and there were funny jokes in Star Wars. Yeah, R2-D2, yeah, Jar Jar, well, he was too much, right? Like, he was way too much. But yeah, C-3PO, R2-D2, yeah, and so, like, you had comic relief before in the past. I think the problem is that the story just sucked and it was told in a bad way. Like, I even agree with, like, Snoke being, like, nothing. It was like, it was played out to be, like, this really big thing, and it was nothing. I actually think that was a cool plot twist that just wasn't capitalized on in a good way.
In fact, look, what am I talking about? It is nihilistic. A moment like this wouldn't feel out of place in Spaceballs. You know, the film that was made to take the piss out of Star Wars.
Yeah.
Now it's appearing in the real thing. Like, this is the point we've arrived at. There's a great video essay you should watch by The Closer Look about The Last Jedi's comedy, and in it they continuously bring up this word, bathos, which basically means an anti-climax created by a lapse in mood from the sublime to the trivial.
Yeah, this is exactly, so fucking true. It's like you have it, like, no story nowadays can have a serious moment, because everything has to be offset by a stupid joke, or like some sort of, funny aside. That's exactly, I completely agree with this.
It's a film presenting us with something that could potentially be rather emotional, or epic, or dramatic, before pulling it away at the last second. We got you. We're totally serious, but we were one step ahead of you. If this sounds familiar, because it's basically appeared in every single modern blockbuster created within the Hollywood system. And it is this type of Joker which I believe to have caused the single greatest problem of this entire meta-ironic era which Hollywood currently finds itself in. You know what I was saying earlier?
This one reminds me. You know, we had a guy that did this. You know, we know, yeah, there's a guy that did it. 45, yeah.
You know what I was saying earlier? Creating a barrier. Yes, I would argue that it's going to be access more frequently visible, more sturdy, barrier between the two.
Well, and there's instances like maybe not right? But like, you know, this issue of like, you know, this guy, her thinking that she's got something. I think this was a yeah. And she got a lightsaber. You don't even have the lightsaber out. You gotta give a fuck. I think this is cool. I do. I thought this was fucking cool. Sorry to say. And then there's the other one. Yeah, here we go. I think dialogue like that was the great example. Like, that scene, that dialogue didn't need to happen. And it's stupid. Like, I actually think that's the example of the stupid dialogue that dials things down. That's the cringe shit. So, like, she's training the white guy, Count Duncan. It's done, you know. Oops, get the fuck out of here. And this is, by the way, this is the, yeah, she trained him. Yeah. Yeah, not going too well. Let me to over-explain things exactly. The Rogue One was good, yeah. And so it's like there's elements of it being done well, but I actually think that you guys see what I'm saying, though, about like the dialogue of that doesn't look good. It's like, okay. Yeah, Logan, obviously, it's that's Darth Vader. It's not good. It's like the self-awareness. It should take attention to him. I will acknowledge this for every movie series except for Deadpool, because Deadpool is off that, and that's why it's funny. But everything else, yes. Like that's part of that's like the appeal of it.
My initial reaction to The Lord of the Rings was one of
Deadpool's whole character,
because I
yeah.
was so used to film